going back to your point about Democrats, one of the reasons that motivated my deregistering from the party, I mean, as a black person, you're just expected to be a Democrat, but you can't honestly ignore the fact that you have all of these cities that have large black populations that are afflicted with blight, all kinds of disparities, between rich and poor, crime. And they're run by Democrats. In many instances, they've been run by Democrats for decades, and yet people still keep supporting them. So, and I got backlash on Twitter when I'm like, well, I'm not going to vote for Democrats just automatically. They're taking our vote for granted. They piss in your face and they're telling you it's raining. They do it all the time, and black people just eat it up. And I'm just, I'm all about black empowerment. But for me, my empowerment is, not automatically subscribing to any one worldview or any party. It's like, you want to earn my vote, then earn my vote. Don't just assume that I'm going to go there. And you can just say things and be like, oh, white people. And I'm going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just go along with it. I'm just not that guy.
I'll tell you what I see a big part of the problem is, right? So you said everyone you've met knows about Emmett Till. Ian didn't. I was talking about my friend who said, I'm surprised people don't teach about Juneteenth. And I'm like, they taught us when we were in school.
Yeah. The irony.
What these people, these progressives and these leftists, and many of them, I get it, good-natured, righteous indignation.
Yeah.
The problems they're talking about are in Democrat-run cities, like you mentioned. So when you complain about police brutality, you're not talking about rural Idaho. You're talking about New York City. When you mention stop and frisk, New York City. When you talk about racially segregated neighborhoods like redlining, that was Chicago, the red line. It's the train line. It's called the red line. They called it redlining. These things were all happening in cities run by Democrats for like 100 years. Mm-hmm. So maybe you got issues. Look, I've been to conservative parts of the South, very racist places. Mm-hmm. I've been to a lot of them. People have their own worldviews based on where they live. And I think one of the issues is that these progressives live in cities and then they treat the whole country like a city block in Manhattan.
And they do it with the media. Like the media gets into all the cities. It's even like culture, politics is downstream from culture, fantastic concept.
They'll go to a bar in Manhattan and then attribute their experience to rural Idaho.
And then they'll make a commercial and show it on TV in rural Idaho and start messing with people. And it's so insidious.
Well, it's so... Having spent 15 years in New York, I mean, it's such an enveloping experience, and even I have to stop myself from I have to remind myself that this is just a really unique place to be, and not everywhere is like this, and not everywhere should be like this. And New Yorkers, they think they're smarter than everybody else, and they think that everywhere should be like New York. But then when you leave New York, people are like, man, I don't like New York because I don't care you're from New York. What,
right.
You Yankee, yada, yada, yada. Like they just don't care. Nobody thinks that New Yorkers are as cool as New Yorkers do.
Yeah. Were you in Manhattan?
Oh, yeah.
People in Manhattan were like, Brooklyn's not New York.
Well, but everyone in New York agrees Staten Island isn't New York, even people from Staten Island.
Well, but also there's this, I mean, I've spoken to people, brilliant people who, they say, for instance, I don't like those flyover country people. People who have grown up in the lap of affluence and privilege say, I don't like these. But I'm like, dude, as soon as you leave Manhattan, the rest of the state is pretty red.
Right.
I mean, you can go upstate, and you can see Trump signs. I mean, maybe even a Confederate flag or two, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, you're even.
They're bubbles.
They're in their bubbles. You're crapping on your own people.
They're in bubbles, and the bubbles are actually getting smaller and smaller in physical space, but denser in population.
Yeah.
So you go outside New York, even a couple miles, it's red.
Yeah.
You start seeing a bunch of Republicans and Trump supporters.
And I'll say this too, just in terms of the COVID response. I mean, that in and of itself. I mean, I feel like I have a bit of a unique experience in terms of having lived in the city at the start of the pandemic. I was one of the people, I mean, I was sanitizing my mail and my groceries back in January and February, man. I was stocking up on food. I was telling my friends and family. I still have nitrile gloves left over from when I stocked up on supplies. Someone on Twitter was like, so that means you robbed medical professionals of like much needed gear? I was like, oh my God. But then you go
That's what they were saying back then, man.
They were, but
don't wear masks, they said. That's crazy.
Yeah, thanks, Surgeon General. But then when you go to a place like Atlanta, where it's way more relaxed, and then you come back to New York. I mean, New York right now, I mean, I'm in this chat group on Twitter, and it's a lot of lefties and liberals who are against the lockdown measures. And a lot of us are in New York. A lot of us met up in New York last time I was there. And if you live in New York City, you are inundated every moment of your life. Once you leave your apartment, your shoebox, with, there's arrows on the ground telling you where to walk. There's little circles telling you where to stand, inside and outside. There's advertisements everywhere telling you to wear your mask. There's train announcements. There's digital it's everywhere. Get your vaccine. Stay away from each other. Mask up. Don't wear it underneath your nose. It's constant. It's constant. It's constant. Then you go to Atlanta, and I make this point on Twitter, like, you can go get a lap dance in Atlanta right now, and no one cares. I work at a nightclub down there. No one's wearing masks inside because they want to get out and party. And it's not that they don't care. It's just that, it's just a whole different vibe. Then you come to New York and everyone is like walking around outside with their masks on, and they're afraid, and they're not socializing. And it's a totally different world, but they don't know it because they're in this bubble in New York, and they watch the news all the time, and they don't know.
You look at in response to Texas opening up, you get Michael Moore and Keith Olbermann saying, "Take the vaccines away from Texas."
Everyone should die.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, dude, you realize just like a little bit less than half of Texas votes Democrat. It was very close between, was it Beto and Ted Cruz who they were running? Mm-hmm. I think. Yeah. It was pretty close. And so a bunch of even leftists and Democrats were like, guys, please, there are Democrats who live in Texas. You don't want any of them to die. And they were like, there was one tweet from this guy, and he was like, furthermore, Republicans shouldn't die either simply because they voted for a Republican. That's insane that these prominent progressives say this. But look at who these people are. Limousine liberal Keith Olbermann and Michael Moore. They live in the bosom of wealth in ultra liberal cities. I don't exactly know where they're living right now, but they're totally in this weird bubble surrounded by other weirdos who think this is popular opinion. And even even media Democrats who have all of their biases, we always complain about them. We're like, dude, come on. Like, we don't want Republicans to die from the virus.
Yeah.
We can complain about the governor and stuff, but Florida's been open the whole time. And I'm like, here, dude. I agree, man. I think it's just one of the problems is that you have personalities like this, like Olbermann, like Moore, who it's the definition of a grifter. You know what I mean? They love to point the fingers in my direction, and I'm like, dude, I'll just say whatever I feel like saying. Michael Moore trying to rile people up to the point where he actually says, take the vaccines away, or maybe they shouldn't have vaccines, and Keith Olbermann saying they shouldn't have vaccines. I'm like, not even leftists were saying that, because you actually have people on the left who have opinions. I disagree with some of their opinions. I agree with some of their opinions. And I think many of them genuinely believe what they believe. But I look at people like Olbermann or Moore when they say stuff like that. I'm like, they don't believe any of this. They're just saying what they think will rile up enough people to get a bunch of retweets, and it worked.
They're part of the quote unquote intelligentsia. And I also notice a trend among a lot of these people. I mean, I often say that Twitter is a place where you can get away with saying things that would get you punched in the face in real life. And a lot of these so-called radicals or whatever, there's a guy that I follow. I follow him explicitly because I disagree with him so vehemently. He's a socialist. I'm not gonna say what his name is, but he's tweeting the most overheated, hyperbolic, melodramatic rhetoric about, we have to overthrow the capitalistic system. And, every time there's a black person holiday, he's like, Malcolm X. And then you watch a video, and he's just the most, I don't know how to describe it, but, he sounds like this. And I'm like, of course you sound like that. Because when the revolution goes down, you ain't going to be nowhere to be found. He's going to be one of those people who's going to have a gun and be like, oh, I don't know what to do with this, and people are punching people, I don't know what to do. It's the softest people who have the most to talk. It's all every time.
I've been getting more. I became more of a gun person in the past year because of the riots.
Yes, you have. I'm finding bullets just randomly around the house. By the way, it's actually pretty hilarious.
Well, they're not. It's not random. It's not random.
Okay.
No, it is. It is strategic.
Let me out of here.
But I won't get into too much detail because security at the house and everything like that. But it isn't random. And I started going to the range. We mentioned this earlier in the show. Give someone a handgun who's never fired before. Man, will they not be able to make it work? And so the people there's a lot of new gun owners. A lot of liberals went out and bought guns. And I hope, any of you listening who are new gun owners, you go take some classes. You go to a local range, you ask people to give you all the tips in the world because you need to respect, like what it means to be well-versed in the rules, the safety, how to actually shoot. When the revolution comes, a lot of these people who are, on the left, they're not going to know how to operate a gun at all.
No.
And so there's a joke where a lot of conservatives say this. They were like, I can't remember exactly what the joke is. I'm sure people listening will know it, but it's something like, thank you to all of the liberals who are buying supplies. You're collecting them for the people who own guns, which is like the conservatives. Because when it really comes down to it, what are you going to do, when people are getting violent? It's the craziest thing when I have these conversations with people and they don't think anything bad is happening because we are truly frogs in a pot boiling. Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of people saying like, Tim, you were scaremongering about civil war or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And then like 800 people stormed into the U.S. Capitol building, I guess. So was I wrong? Like I didn't say the apocalypse was going to happen and like we were going to see meteors fall from the sky and the whole planet was going to blow up. I said people are going to start escalating the violence and the tensions, and it's literally happening. And I don't see any reason why it would stop at this point, because they're still just ramping things up.
Kind of like a global civil war. This fifth, I was going to call it fifth generational war, but it doesn't have to be
World War.
One country. Yeah, but it's like a civil world war. Like it's an economic world war or a political world war right now.
It's a weird time of upheaval. You know what I mean? It's very, very, it's weird. It's unique. And I think that's the issue too, is too much. We have that saying, right? Those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. Well, there should be another saying where it's like those who think the future will be based on the past 100% are fools. I don't know. It's not a good quote, but you get the idea, right? You can't look at 1860s and be like, that's going to happen today. It's like, what are you talking about? We have phones. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we have the internet. Like there's just...
We have artificial intelligence. This is like
seriously, and
satellites
and nuclear bombs. It's not going to be the same conflict. Back in the day, I love talking about this because it's a point a lot of people don't realize. Could you imagine during the Civil War sending a message from D.C. to like Fort Sumter, and you're like, how do we get a message there? Put it on horseback, and then it'll be there in a week. Today, it's like, let me just text Jim. Mm-hmm. Yep, you got the message. All right, they're moving out. It's just like the instantaneous transmission of information has changed everything.
Totally.
So what we experience is going to be very, very different. It's not going to be, like the past.
Yeah, I don't know how things are going to work out. I mean, I am curious. What is his name? Michael Malice, who talks about all this chaos is actually good because on the other side of it, we're going to come out better for it. And maybe he's right. I mean, maybe that's part of why people like me are popping up, because we're saying, more and more of us are saying like, no, this is not okay. I'm not okay with the way things are going. But at the same time, whatever happens in terms of getting to that place, whatever that proverbial better place might be. I mean, maybe that actually, now that I think about it, that might be another form of utopianism in a way. It's like, what's on the other side of that? It's no place.
You ever watch Star Trek?
No, I watched The Next Generation like back in the day.
Great show.
One of the best shows ever made. Yeah. One of my all-time favorite shows. And I'm just like, I look at this vision of the future where you've got people of all different race and species. They work together. Mm-hmm. There's alliances. And I'm just imagining like this 90s era liberalism that truly believed in treating people based on the content of their character resulted in this idea. And it wasn't even 90s. I mean, you go back to the original Star Trek, and they had like the first interracial kiss with Uhura, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Uhura.
Yeah. Wrong one.
Sorry. Oh no. Oh. They're gonna come after me now.
Yeah. But so it was always fairly progressive, and then in the 90s, it brings about this vision of a future where people are all getting along and judging people on the content of their character. Could you imagine Star Trek today, where it's like an alien race comes in, they're like, how many arms do you have? Okay, you have no arm privilege, but you are psychic, or you have psychic privilege. And it's like a show based on that worldview would just be like the most painfully dystopian nightmare.
Yeah. Not
a good idea for a future. I like this idea where we're all just like, we're going to get on a spaceship and go to space. I don't care what you look like. Can you press the button? Great, let's do it. You know what I mean?
I feel like the previous show that you mentioned, however, even though nobody would watch it, I guarantee it would get at least a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I should probably
be showered with
skit.
Awards.
Oh yeah, it would be like 1% audience rating, but like 100% certified fresh.
Exactly.
I think we should film a sketch like that, but not be explicit in the comedy of it. Like literally just make woke Star Trek as like a short, like 3-minute little bit, and just see if that happens.
Take it seriously.
Take it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the captain has to be like a disabled person of color who's non-binary. And, because a privilege is not going to be given to the white male or whatever. And then a certain species comes in and it's like a floating mass and it has no legs, it has no color. And so they're like, it has no known privilege,
That would be excellent. I think the captain should be, oh gosh, it should be a fat black transgendered paraplegic in a hijab. That should be the captain of this Star Trek series.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.